But anyways, next question.
How do different identity markers such as race, ethnicity, ability, disability, aged body size, socioeconomic status, class, sexual orientation, spirituality, religion, or other identities influenced my gender identity? Ethnicities influence on masculine, feminine, religion influence on binary gender norms. I think in Navajos there's definitely a clear, like, you're female, you get your ears pierced, you, like, you know, because, like, yeah, I had my ears pierced since I was 6 months old, and I pierced my daughter's when she was 2 years old, because I kept forgetting the birth certificate, and you need one now to go to Claire's and get your child's ears pierced. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Because I guess, like, aunties and grandmas would just, like, take the little girls in and pierce their ears without the parents' permission, and so now you have to prove you're the actual child's parent. But, yeah, like, I don't know, like, my mom had 9 sisters. I bring this up a lot. Like, where's that bingo card?
I know, right?
My mom had 9 sisters, and so they had to pull a slack of, like, a lot of, like, the male stuff. But, like, they're always feminine, and they're always like, well, I have this crazy, curly, wavy hair, all right? And it was really hard to, like, manage and brush and take care of. And so I always got, like, BS for, like, my hair being tangled or bushy, and it's like, it's what it is. You guys don't know how to deal with my hair. I don't know what my hair is, because my mom had curls, like, really tight curls, and everyone else had, like, straight black hair.
Yeah.
And they're like, yours is weird and wavy, and it gets constantly tangled. I don't know how to deal with your hair, so we're just not going to deal with it.
Yeah.
And learn how to take care of it. So I was constantly being berated for not being as pretty girls, or, like, being, like, I was definitely rough and loud, and, like, I had no filter. Like, I have a filter today, you know, nowadays when I'm dealing with people. Definitely not on Navajo tea time. I take my filter off sometimes, and you see the full sarcasm come out. So I had that when I was younger, too, and people are like, you're not supposed to talk like that. You're supposed to be mild and meek, and, you know, and definitely, like, the aunts and the grandmas would definitely say that to me a lot. But I don't think, and it's kind of hard because I come from a mixed family. I have the German side family and then, like, the Navajo side family. And when I was younger, I was definitely I lived more with my German family because we were in Phoenix with them, and I was surrounded by them all the time. So I was, like, this little brown-haired, brown-eyed, brown-skinned native girl hanging out with, like, a blue-eyed, blonde-haired girl. And that's just, like, my family. We were always, like, skin color, eye color, whatever. It didn't mean anything to me. And so, like, I grew up with that family, and it was just, so comparing the ethnicities or whatever, it's confusing in a way, because I don't know if it actually played a role of, like, being Navajo or being part German.
Yeah.
And what raised me when we were younger.
Yeah.
But, like I said, I never had the identity crisis of, like, what if I'm a boy, or what if, like, it was never, like, I like male boy things, so I must be a boy. It's just, like, I'm a girl. I'm a tomboy. I like boy things, but I'm still a girl. And I still like dresses and tea parties and everything. And, like, my mom didn't interact with that feminine side of me because she didn't know how to interact. Because her dad, when she was growing up, never interacted with her that way.
Yeah.
She was always in sports, and she was always doing masculine male activities. So when I showed interest in feminine things, she didn't know how to react or interact with that.
Yeah. I think I was tomboy in behavior, but I've always presented myself in a feminine way. Like, I would get in a fight in a dress. You know what I mean? Like, I would run and play in a dress. I would, you know, bully the boys in a dress. But I always, like, I loved doing my hair. I always loved doing my makeup. Like, I started wearing makeup in, like, 6th grade. You know what I mean? Like, I've always loved lipstick. And it was because I remember seeing pinup models when I was younger, like, the drawings. And I remember being really intrigued by the whole, like, retro cheesecake phase, you know what I mean? All of that propaganda that was put out about what females look like, very put together, and I just thought it was so beautiful. I used to really adore old Hollywood, all of the actresses and how beautiful they were and how nice their makeup and hair was and their clothes, and that was a gender ideal, I guess, for me. That was the kind of woman I wanted to be, but my behavior was very, it was much more aggressive. It was much more like, I want to have fun too. And that's the balance that I've maintained since I was a little girl. And and it was a kind of, for me it was normal just because a lot of my cousins who were my age were all boys. You know what I mean? And so that's who I played with, you know. And my cousins who are younger than me were girls, and I didn't want to play with them because they were like
babies.
Yeah, they're like the babies, you know. You don't want to hang out with the babies. You want to be like, you know, hang out with your own age group. So, you know, and they would make fun of me in all my dresses. I used to even have like fur coats and like have my hair all done, and they would like pull my hair and pick on me and make fun of me. But I loved it. I've always loved getting dressed up. I've always loved wearing nice clothes and smelling good and being clean. Like but I also, you know, so that's kind of like the thing. But as far as like identity markers such as race, I think that the ideals that I grew up with, it was very fluid, I think, because where I grew up on the res, there were a lot of women that were more masculine, and they wore pants. Like so I have two grandmas, right? One grandma, very feminine. She always wore a dress. She always wore her jewelry. She put her hair up in a tieth and wore the scarves. You know what I mean? And then my other grandma, my Nellie, very masculine. She always wore pants. I never saw her in a dress for the longest time. She did not perform the same way my other grandma did. She was more aggressive. She was more mean, you know, more loud. And
like you.
And she had all boys too. She didn't have any daughters. She had all boys. Whereas my grandma, she had boys and girls. You know what I mean? So Shema Sene and my Nelly, Chanela Estan, very different personalities. And so I think that I saw it being performed differently. And then out in the public, I would see very masculine women, you know, with short hair, kind of butch, you know what I mean? They were like the rodeo women too. Some of them, they like handled cows and cattle, and they're just really tough, like badass ladies. And I never questioned it. I never questioned their gender though. You know what I mean? I never questioned, like, is that weird? It was just normal. I never questioned it. It was fine.
Yeah, definitely. You know growing
I mean?
up, there were the people who did cattle. You know, they took care of cattle and everything. Yeah. And there was male and female people who did the roping and who helped pull down the cattle and brand. And then there's like the rodeo people, as you were saying too. Like, but then I noticed like in school, like the volleyball girl or like you know the sports girls for me, like they always loved doing their hair pretty.
The volleyball girls are really feminine, huh? And then and then the
like,
basketball girls weren't.
No, because like when I grew up, it was a weird femininity where like the sports girls, they really took care of their hair. They maybe it's just because my hair was curly and I didn't have to put as much attention to making it look nice, but like they really like put on the makeup and did their hair really nice. But then like they dressed in like baggy clothes and like you know sports clothes every day.
Yeah,
and it's like you're oddly female and masculine. Yeah. And it's like, I always thought the sports girls were really girly in that way because they always like took hours to do their hair. And I never spent that much time on my hair. But then I'd wear dresses and I didn't think I was super girly.
Yeah.
But I just didn't spend that much time doing my hair and makeup.
Yeah.
And they spent a lot of time doing their hair and makeup. So I was like, you're kind of girly.
But it's very fluid too because like even my grandmas who are very feminine and wore dresses and all of that, they were also the ones like herding sheep and cutting the necks and butchering and
I mean, but in our society that's feminine.
And so they weren't like, but they weren't like in the house and being served, you know, like being served.
That's with our culture. That's the feminine on our culture. It's not Western society.
That's feminine. What I'm saying. Yeah, that's how race
and ethnicity.
Yeah, that's how it that identity marker, that's how it informed my gender identity, just because that's the norm on the res, right? So it was very different. And so you see feminine women doing very like dirty, tough, even like bloody tasks.
Butchering a sheep.
Exerting their strength, you know, and their will. Whipping their kids, you know what I mean? It just shaped all of that. And so I think that's why there's this element of like masculine, feminine, like masculine femininity almost. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird. That's what I meant about being more of a masculine female. I think being, like, when it comes to ability and disability, I think being able-bodied allowed me to perform femininity because being an able-bodied person, I can wear certain clothes, I can wear certain shoes, you know what I mean? And so that provided me a certain kind of privilege. that enhanced this gender norm. Body size, I'm kind of short, so I'm not like really like, I'm not big, you know what I mean? I'm short. I'm actually sitting on a pillow. See? So I have a small body, you know what I mean? The boys have always been bigger than me. A lot of girls are bigger than me. So, you know, in that way, that's kind of more feminine. My voice is registered high naturally. Even when I try to be deep like this, it's still kind of like, you know, like, and the way I speak, I think, is a little more feminine also. And so I think that that's influenced by these identity markers. Socioeconomic status and class, I felt like for the majority of my youth were probably lower class because my parents didn't make a lot of money. We didn't come from money. They basically started from the bottom and they worked their way up, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, they didn't even have a vehicle when they got married. My dad used to ride my mom to work on his bike, you know what I mean? And they would go to work on a bike. And then they didn't have their own home yet when they got married. They got married right out of high school, so they didn't have nothing. But they were given a home site lease when they got married as a gift. And so they were able to build a home eventually when they had the money. But it took years to get to that point. Mm-hmm. So I think that in a sense, what it showed me was that women also have to work. You know what I mean? And that influenced, I think, my work ethic. I was never at a class where I had the privilege of not working, mm-hmm. or seeing a mother that didn't have to work. Or, you know what I mean, seeing other people in the family that didn't have to work. The only person that didn't have to hold a job was my grandmother. You know what I mean? And she was very well taken care of. But that's because she was at that age where she had earned that and where her children were taking care of her. And so in my mind, that's the norm. You work your butt off through through the years from when you're young to when you're an elder. Then you get to a point where your children can care for you. But I think that's how that influenced. Sexual orientation, I think that's, for me at least, been kind of fluid. But
no, I think, how does sexual orientation affect your gender?
I think that So
for me,
I'm in a...
It doesn't, because I'm like, who I'm attracted to doesn't have anything to do with how I present myself. Yeah. Because, like, I'm me, and I'm attracted to who I'm attracted to. And if they like me back, that's great, but I have to be me first. I can't be like, oh, I'm attracted to a guy, so I'm going to be ultra feminine and be, like, super made up and done up. Or, like, I'm attracted to a girl, so I'm going to be less. I don't think... that works right. It's like you have to be who you are and just like who you like, and I don't know how the other how they affect each other, unless, like, when you grow up, you're like, okay, you have to present yourself this way to attract a husband, if that's like the thinking. But I've never been, that wasn't the way I was brought up. Like, you have to dress this way to attract a husband. You know, I was never taught that, so that doesn't play to my gender identity with my sexual orientation. Yeah,
I think the same, because I think sometimes, like you said, people will behave or present themselves a certain way to attract a specific kind of partner, whereas I didn't do that either. I'm just like, take me as I am or leave me alone. Spirituality, religion. I was raised up in a Christian home, so it was mandatory that a woman be feminine and be servile and be subservient to her husband. That's what was taught in the church. And it was also that the woman is supposed to be the support system for her husband. And that's what I saw being performed between my parents. You know what I mean? And so that, I think, definitely did play a part in my identity and my gender identity. But I think that I also rejected that when I was 18 and I decided that I was never going to be a part of the church ever again. And I rejected all of those things. And I decided that I had to be authentically who I am, and I wasn't going to perform that or be subservient to anyone, whether it's a man or a woman. I had to be in charge of my own life, and I had to have respect for myself, I guess.
So for me, with like the socioeconomic, the religion, and the class status, like I come from a family of divorce. A lot of my aunts have also been divorced from their others, and so I've been surrounded by women taking care of their children and working for themselves, like at the bead stand. It's that's what I was growing up with.
Yeah.
I've grown up with women take care of themselves, they take care of their family, they do everything. And sometimes you have a good husband.
Yeah.
So I've been raised and taught to be able to take care of myself first, whether I'm a woman or a man. I need to learn to take care of myself. I need to be able to feed myself, and learn all the things I need to do, because you can't count on a man specifically, or you can't count on a person to stick around. Is how I was raised, and the things it wasn't how I was raised, it was just the things I saw. Because like definitely with like the religion and the spirituality of like my mom being Christian and then kind of floating between different churches, she always had this idea of like, you need to marry a man and have a husband, and you need to be a good wife. Those were things she said, but she never practiced, so I never absorbed it, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, because like it's kind of harsh to say, where she's like, you need to be the perfect wife, you need, like, because certain religions, the way they say is like, you need to serve your husband, and like even from a young age, I'm like, no thank you, because I've never been obedient. I've never been like the one to follow orders and take orders well, without knowing the reason why behind things. And so like seeing my mom and her telling me these things, it's like, but you've been divorced, you've had how many boyfriends? None of them stayed, even though you tried being the perfect wife. You tried like none of that's worked for you. So I'm just gonna be me, and if the guy likes me, he'll stay, and if he doesn't, then he can F off, you know? It's like, I'm not gonna try, like, none of the religious teachings of how a wife should be and how a wife should act in any culture has ever resonated with me. Like even Navajo or Hopi or LDS and Christian, none of it's made sense to me. And I don't agree with any of it, and that's why I haven't conformed to any religion, even traditional Navajo. I'm like, nah, that's not me, I'm gonna go by. I can't. And that's just because of the things I've seen growing up, is that you can't expect someone to stick around. You know, you hope they do, but you have to be able to do things on your own and be able to survive on your own. And maybe that's just my trauma of like, I can't trust anyone to be able to take care of me and my own. Yeah. There's always like that thing in the back of my head of like, I can't trust anyone to be there, so I have to be able to do everything on my own. So if I'm subservient to my husband and let him have all the work and all the resources coming through him, then that leaves me at a disadvantage. And that's just me as a person. I don't think that's anything to do with my gender. That's just a lot to do with my own traumatic childhood.
No, I think it does. Like, I think that's definitely something that contributes, though, to your gender identity, which is unique. You're not fitting within this gender binary of, you know what I mean? You're kind of like... And the thing about the gender binary is it's not reflective of the human experience either. Like, that's what I learned in, WGS and studying social behavioral science, is like there's a spectrum that people fall on, and it's not, I mean, it's like that for gender, it's like that for sexuality, it's like that for who we are as people. There's very, like, it's a spectrum, and there's no one, I mean, there may be extremes, there are extremes that exist, but they're not the norm. And so, like, when I think about what you said about, the way your family was composed, I think that influenced me too, because for me it was the total opposite. Everyone was married and everyone stayed with each other. Like, it was death till death do us part. It didn't matter how good your relationship was or how healthy it was or unhealthy it was, you know what I mean? Like, you stuck together, and that was the norm. And for me, I always questioned that. And when I got married, because this is like tea, but so I've been married twice. My first marriage, I was young. I was 21 when I got married. It was a spur-of-the-moment decision, kind of. It was almost arranged like a business with me and the individual, where it wasn't so much... It was based on the privileges he could acquire and the privileges he could afford me, basically. And we decided it was a good idea, and we decided we were not going to include our families in it and tell our parents, which was so stupid. And we got married in Vegas. We eloped. And I didn't realize how hurtful that was going to be to my family. My mom didn't tell me this till years later, that she felt like he stole me. He didn't ask for permission. He just took me and married me and then just kind of like chewed me up and spit me out. So that's how she talks about it. And that's how I feel sometimes. But we got married. We were young. We were stupid. We didn't do it for the right reasons. But we were really good friends for a long time. We've known each other since we were in 8th grade. We started dating when we were seniors in high school. And then we moved in together after high school. And then he went to the Marine Corps because 9/11 happened. He enlisted. We broke up. He went on deployment to Japan and Korea. When he came home, we reconnected. So when we decided to get married, we eloped. And the way I performed as a wife, I thought was detrimental to me because I did it the way I saw other women in my family doing it, basically being the perfect wife. You do everything for your husband. You cook, you clean. And I mean, I would get up at 3 in the morning to make him breakfast so that he could go to work because we're in California at Camp Pendleton. And so we lived off base, and I would get up at 3 in the morning with him every morning so that I could cook for him. He could go to work. Then I would, clean the apartment. I had a part-time job. And it was just for fun because I wanted my own money. But but I didn't have to work, you know what I mean? Because he took care of everything. But I did it because I'm the kind of person that I feel like I need to work, you know? I get bored fast. Because the other wife because we all kind of lived together, there was another wife. She would just hang out by the pool all day. And I did not like her. And because of the way she was, I was like, ew, gross. I'm going to get a job. I don't want to be like her. But, and that's just my pride. But, yeah, we didn't have to work. If we wanted to, we could just hang out at the beach or we could hang out by the pool all day. Anyways, I did all the cleaning and cooking, and I would make sure dinner was ready for him when he got home. Every single night. I did all of his laundry. You know what I mean? I made sure our home was nice and comfortable. We had everything we needed. I took care of him. And he would bring, other guys from his platoon would come over. We'd have cookouts and stuff. And I would cook for everybody, And I was very, I performed as a wife. I always made sure I was dressed up really beautifully and feminine. Every time I went on base, you know what I mean? I wanted to make sure that I was presentable. That he could be proud of me. It was very, trophy wife-esque. You know what I mean? This is before I ever went to college. This is before I had any aspirations. I was just very young, And I was really falling into this. And I thought it would work. I thought that it was going to be great. And it wasn't. I mean, we lasted about 6 months playing this game, and it all just went up in flames. And it's a long story that I'm not going to go into, but I realized that I can't perform the way other women in my family performed because to me, it was a give and take. You got to act right, and you got to be as committed to me as I am to you. Otherwise, I'm going to start taking away privileges. So by the end of our marriage, I didn't do nothing for him. I did not cook. I did not clean. I did not answer to him. I never asked for permission. I made my own money. I had my name on vehicles, and everything that I needed to have to be on my own, that was all in place. I had my own finances, you know what I mean? I was okay. I could leave at that point. But it took, it was just a whole thing because I learned that by being subservient, that was not beneficial to me. It was putting me in a place where he could take advantage and I started to feel unappreciated because I was giving freaking 110%. So I think the next question is, how have I benefited from adhering to gender expectations and roles? I feel like I didn't benefit from it, from that experience specifically. However, I think that I did benefit, though, when it comes to being a parent and a mother. You know what I mean? There is an expectation that when you're going to have children, you need to be married. And the reason why is because that protects you legally. You get certain rights and certain kinds of privileges from being married. And so it also gives your children a certain status. I hate that. You know what I mean? I do. But that's the way the world is set up. And I think having those gender roles and adhering to them and kind of playing by the book, it benefits me. Even when I decided to leave that past marriage and get a divorce, I was able to utilize those things to my benefit so that I was able to get custody. I was able to be stable financially. I was able to really advocate for myself and my children so that we are okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was a hard lesson to learn, but I think that those expectations for feminine women or for women, and by playing by the rules and by having a record of success being a wife, a good wife, and being a mother, that played into that gave me an advantage in the court system and with our families and with my reputation. So even when he tried to tear down my reputation, he wasn't successful because I played by the book. I played by the rules, and I built up a reputation for myself so that whenever he tried to tear me down, people would just be like, whatever, dude, you're just mad, You're just mad that she's not there anymore. And that's something that I think benefited me. What about you?
How I benefited from adhering to the gender system? Well, like...
Yeah, the expectations and roles.
I don't know if I've ever adhered to expectation and roles, except for, like, when my dad was in the hospital and getting really sick. They're like, you're the oldest daughter, you have to be there for him. You have to make all the decisions for him because there's no wife, so you're the oldest daughter, and in Navajo, you need to take care of him. I don't know if I benefited from that. It was an experience. But it's not a fun experience when you're like, oh, yes, let my dad have, give him the blood transfusion or whatever. But I know I was very mad when, like, my uncle's like, oh, you look stressed. You should let your older brother take care of him. I'm like, no, don't take this from me now. Maybe it was just because it was my older brother. But... I guess, I don't know, benefited. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what success or what, like, interactions, how it would be different if I was a male for some of the things, because everything I've brought forth, all the work I've ever done, and everything I've ever accomplished in my life I've always, I don't know, it's, I guess, with my work and being female, especially with, like, working with the chapters, me being female definitely makes people listen a little bit closer, because being a female in the community, you have a stronger voice, and being able to call upon, like, my grandmas and my great-grandmas with their support, that helps my company, it helps different organizations I work with. And I think with that and talking to higher companies who want to work with underprivileged communities and genders and things, being female, I get a little preferential treatment with my company because, like, oh, she's a female and she's native. Let's listen to what she has to say and let's work with her.
Yeah.
So I think that's some of the benefits. And I know, like, you were saying, like, with the court system, you benefited a lot with everything. But I think, like, when I was pregnant with my daughter, me and my husband weren't married. And I knew it was going to be difficult for him to be able to sign on anything, documents, school stuff, if we weren't married.
Yeah.
And I knew there was, like
everything gets on your shoulders.
Everything's on me, but I knew he wants and deserves to be a part of her life and makes decisions for her life, too. So we got married. One, so that he could make decisions on her life and be a part of her life legally. And then we got tax breaks for, like, being married and having a child.
Yep, that's what I meant.
Tax credit,
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can file one tax paper instead of, like, two.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's the reason why me and him got married, was the tax breaks and only having to file one tax return, and it was easier legally for him to do anything with our daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, me and my ex-husband, we got married, and we didn't have children until, like, 3 years later after we were married. And when we were, like, the 6-month explosion I was talking about, that happened. We actually filed for a divorce, but something tragic had happened during that time, and he ended up in the hospital, and he had to get surgery. It was life or death. And I was there. I stepped into that role, and I was there to sign all the forms and make sure that we had the best surgeon available, make sure all of the, payments cleared. I acted as his wife at that time, and then I took care of him, even though I was mad at him. Like, you're gonna leave me, you know? But I didn't do that to him. I didn't say that to him. I was kind and nurturing, and I got him back to health, and I told him, you know, we're gonna walk out of here together, because they were telling him, like, you have a 50% chance of surviving. And I told him, you're gonna survive. I assumed that role, got him out of there, made sure he was alive, made sure he was strong, nurtured him back to health. And then once he was healthy, he started being a jerk again. So it was a very rocky relationship. We were young and stupid. But I got to a point when I was 25 where I wanted or I was like 24 at the time. I started to want children. I really wanted a son. Something about me was just like, I really wanted a child. And it was so weird because I had never wanted children before. But I really wanted a son, and I prayed about it, and I asked him, like, I let him know, like, I want to have a child, you know, can we try to stabilize our marriage so we can have a child? And so we decided, okay, let's quit messing around and quit being stupid, and let's start a family. And he wanted a family too. He'd been wanting a family since we were 18, and I kept saying no. I'm like, you're freaking crazy. I'm not having children right now. I'm too young. I'm too beautiful. Ew. I'm just kidding. No, but so we decided to have children, and that gave our children specific rights, right? But I think when it comes to work, you know, women are expected to be the nurturers, right? To be kind and take care of everybody. And in my work, that's what I do. I nurture my teams. I make sure they all have what they need to do their jobs effectively, to do it well. And I notice that, like, that's something I just step into naturally, and I think it benefits my work because people who work with me know they're going to be taken care of. They know that whenever I'm doing I am asking people to volunteer for specific, like, fundraisers, for example. They're going to, you know, I make sure they have food. I make sure they have all the equipment they need. I make sure they're safe. I make sure that we have security. I make sure that they have sunblock, you know, and I don't have to do that, but I do. I make sure they're taken care of so that they can do their job well.
I never saw that as like a feminine trait. I just thought that was something you were supposed to do for people.
It is, and but it's feminized though. You know, they say that women are the nurturers, and
I know they
think
say that.
Yeah.
But like when you were saying, like, you know, I have to be kind and nurturing, I was just thinking about the structure in my business, and like I have my brother and my husband in our business, and I'm like, if you were gonna point to this kind one, you wouldn't point to me. You know, if you were gonna point to a nurturer, you wouldn't point to me. It wouldn't. You know, it's like, who's the ball buster? Who's gonna make everyone get to work and get their ass together? That's me. I'm not the one nurturing and taking care of your emotions. That's on you.
I don't take care of people's emotions. I draw the line there. I don't take care of people's emotions. I take care of their physical being so they're effective. And their mental, but like, I draw the line there when it's a work situation. I'm like, no, you're in charge of your own emotions.
But then I guess I also see it's like in film school, I was like, there was 3 girls in our film school, so I guess just even being like a film major is different from gender norms. But like there was, I guess in the group I was kind of like the mom of the group, but that was just like my neurotic past trauma self, where like I have to take care of everybody because no one else is going to take care of anybody. Like, we have food, we have water, we know where we're going, we know when we're going to get there.
Yeah.
And I noticed at the end, when we were having the big dinner, everything, 2 of the boys' moms, like the parents, I don't call them boys, they're guys.
They're men.
They're guys, they're older than 18. Like, their parents came up to us like, oh, you're Kelsey, you're the one who took such wonderful care of my son while he was going through the program. I'm like, I guess so. They're like, thank you for helping my son so much. Oh my, but it's... Alright everyone, thank you for watching part 2 of 4 of a highly edited down hot tea topic. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Our goal for this year is to get to 1,000 subscribers so that we can become monetized. Yeah, so thanks for watching.
She just smashed it into his face, yeah.
Not a very Navajo friendly. It's like a weird label you're putting on yourself.
They protect us, they guide us. You know, and my father, he worked in law enforcement, so he was...
You witnessed police pulling over cars.
If you gotta slap a senator, you slap a senator. Incorporating language and cultural aspects into... Who's your celebrity crush?
Pass.
It's at a point where you're just like, what am I doing?